So trying to do something about desire is absolutely useless. And religions have focused so much on desire. Do not want this, do not do this. They say desireless action. So they look at desirelessness from the point of view of action. Do not hurt, do not steal, do not argue, do not lie. And all that has been very wasteful. That cannot help. What's the point of attempting change at the level of action when the actor is not being even challenged, let alone changed? Spirituality is not about changing your actions. It is about looking at yourself honestly, ruthlessly, and that's all.
Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 47. Your authority is over your actions only, and not over the result of your actions. So do not act with the hope of fruit of your actions, and also do not become actionless, which is inactive, akarmanya. Authority over actions. What is this authority? And we are being told that this is the only authority that we have. We should place no demands on the fruits of the action. The authority that the ego has, and all these words are being addressed to the ego, is to not become a barrier in the path of realization. That is the adhikār. It is not that the ego must act rightly while it has a tendency to act wrongly. The ego must look at itself and dissuade from acting at all, neither rightly nor wrongly. Nobody acts wrongly deliberately. The ego, from its own vantage point, always acts rightly. I am doing the right thing. So there is no point in advising the ego to act rightly. In its own frame of reference, the ego is anyway always acting rightly. It does not help to say, no, stop your wrong actions and begin the right actions. The ego has to just stop. Whether right or wrong, right and wrong, like or dislike, left or right. That is the only authority the ego really has, to stop itself, to stop believing in itself, to stop investing in itself. The ego does not have to come up with the right action. The right action is spontaneous. The ego is fundamentally incapable of any rightness. All rightness that the ego has is with reference to itself, and that makes all rights wrong. That which is actually right, absolutely right, is unavailable to the ego as long as the ego remains. Because the absolutely right is obfuscated by the ego itself. The very definition of the ego is that which arises at the cost of, by obfuscating, that which is right. What is meant by right here? True, reliable, not deceptive. So you are not to get into action coming from your center at all. Not that you have to suppress one kind of actions and promote the other kind. Not that you have to discipline or train yourself to come up with more acceptable deeds, actions that are more morally passable. None of that. If the ego acts, there will be the desire of fruit, because the ego by definition is incomplete. When you are acting from a point of incompletion, then the obvious motive, purpose of action is to fetch some kind of completion. You cannot have motiveless or purposeless or niṣkāma action acting from the ego. Ego acts wrongly, it will still desire a particular fruit. The ego acts rightly, it will again desire another kind of fruit. Niṣkāma karma is not possible as long as one is acting from this center. So what is the authority that the ego has? It is not to act rightly. That authority is not available to the ego. The right, the power, the choice that the ego really has is to check itself. Stop, halt. You are needless. You are superfluous. You are redundant. You are just extra and additional. Stop. Go. That's the authority. That's the choice that one has to exercise. We are being warned today that if you act with greed or desire, that is much the same as not acting if you still have greed and desire. The center is the same. Sometimes the ego blocks the truth by acting. At other times, the ego blocks the truth by not acting. Acting desirously is something that is visible. So we say, look at this person, he is so full of desire. Reprehensible. We condemn this fellow. He is not spiritual. Why? Because here there is desirous action, and that is visible. You can see action happening. You can see desire dripping from the action. So you are able to condemn. But we are not able to detect desire and ego so easily, so smoothly in people who block the sahaj, free action from happening. There nothing can be detected because there is no gross action to detect. A fellow is running after something, and you will be able to easily spot desire there. See, this fellow is running after something, he is so desirous. And there is another fellow who is sitting quietly in the middle of a carnage, in the middle of mass suffering, in the middle of exploitation, and he is not acting. And it will not be very easy to spot desire here because he is not acting. After all, he is just sitting, and he might appear very quiet, still, and patient. There is no difference between action and the absence of action if the actor is the ego. Often the desirous ones seek spiritual improvement by not acting desirously. They remove the action, not the center of action. They do away with the action, they do not do away with themselves. Remaining themselves, they cease to act, and they think that they have improved. Inwardly, one remains the same. Externally, one stops what were very visible actions of desire, because one has become spiritual. Right? I remain the same. But now I'm not letting my ego manifest itself in an external, visible, gross way. The action has been stopped, but the ego remains. So the action will just change form, level. From being externally visible, it will turn itself into internal subtle action, and that you will not be able to detect. So you will feel that this person has become a non-doer. No, it's not that he has become a non-doer. He is still a doer, because his center is still that of the ego, and as long as there is ego at the center, there will be doership. The ego is the doer. You cannot have a situation where there is ego and no doership. Not possible. Why is the ego condemned to be the doer? Because the ego is a restlessness. When you are restless, you will do something. Because the ego is an incompletion. When you feel incomplete, obviously you will run hither thither. You will want to act with the intention to reach somewhere, to somehow take care of your incompleteness, uneasiness. The ego, therefore, is bound to be a doer. We do not look at the ego. More correctly, the ego does not look at itself. Rather, it just wants to extinguish the external signs of its mischief. And that too it extinguishes just so that some desire can be fulfilled. So I will not exhibit desire so that I can fulfill desire. If I exhibit desire, then it becomes difficult for desire to be fulfilled. Let me give an example. If I exhibit my desire for money, it will become difficult to fulfill my desire for respect. So, I will ostensibly quell my desire for money, and I will not display any signs that I am money-minded. Right? I may in fact stop running after money in some limited way, so that another, probably a bigger desire is fulfilled. What is that bigger desire? To have respect. So as long as there is ego at the center, it is impossible to be desireless. And once the ego has looked at its own reality, its own suffering, its own culpability in its suffering, its stupidity in suffering needlessly, then the ego makes a choice to retreat. To retreat is really the only choice that the ego has. Any other choice that the ego makes is just an expression of the ego. The ego expressing itself is not really a choice. It's an unavoidable phenomenon, no? It's like ice feeling cold. That's not a choice that ice makes. It's like a madman uttering nonsense. That's not a choice that the madman makes. Like iron being pulled to magnet. That's not a choice that iron makes. It's an inevitability. So desire is an inevitability with the ego. The ego cannot be and not be desirous. So trying to do something about desire is absolutely useless. And religions have focused so much on desire. Do not want this, do not do this. They say desireless action. So they look at desirelessness from the point of view of action. Do not hurt, do not steal, do not argue, do not lie. And all that has been
very wasteful. That cannot help. What's the point of attempting change at the level of action when the actor is not being even challenged, let alone changed? Right? The right action, the real action, happens on its own. You cannot be the cause of the right action. You, meaning the ego. You cannot cause it. It is uncaused. It does not come from a place that the ego can command. However, there is something that the ego can do, and it continues doing it because we said that that's how the ego expresses itself. Sometimes the ego blocks the right action and comes up with an alternate action. And sometimes the alternate action is the blockage of the right action itself. Both of these are actions. The right action is about to happen. It is always ready to happen, anytime. Truth is never distant. The right action is about to happen. And now the ego, if it is not yet very desirous of fame, etc., the ego will either come up with some other action which is steeped in desire, and that way it will block the right action. Or if it wants to act respectable, it will not come up with an alternate action, but just block the right action. And just blocking the right action too is an action. So all actions of the ego are just with one solo purpose, and the purpose is to not let the right action happen. The ego can go left. There is just one intention. The right action must not happen. The ego can also go right, forward or backward. The intention is just the same. So there is not much in changing the direction of your actions. Are you getting it? You can be an exploiter towards the right, you can be an exploiter towards the left. Your job is to let it happen. And that's real choice. The only choice. All other choices are just fake. And this choice, this authority, this adhikār that we have is rarely exercised. The ego looks at this one as a fatal choice. It feels mortally threatened. If I exercise this choice, then I'm gone, finished. Therefore, this authority is there, but it remains unused. And this is the only real power that the ego has. What is this power? To disappear. What is this power? To step back. What is this power? To resign. What is this power? To let go, to drop, to flow. But the ego is made of desire. That's the stuff of ego. And desire is future. So even if there is the chance to retreat, the ego will first ask, what after this? If I retreat, what after me? Who is there? Unfortunately,
that which is there once the ego is gone can never be visible or detectable to the ego. The ego can detect only the stuff that lies in its own dimension. Truth is beyond the ego, therefore undetectable. The ego asks, well, let's assume I'm not there. Who is in charge after me? And gets no answer. Since it gets no answer, it gets more reasons to believe that there is nobody else to be in charge. And the ego says, since there is nobody else to shoulder the responsibility of the organism, this jiva, therefore I have to be at the saddle. Therefore I have to hem the action. Are you getting it? Love, mysticism, faith, they are about retreating without bothering for what will happen next. They are about letting the real thing happen without asking, what does it have for me? And you forget to ask that only when you allow yourself to be drenched in, to be marinated in the beauty of the real thing. You cannot stop asking questions about future and security. You can only forget asking those questions. And that forgetfulness happens only when you are lost in beauty. Only when you have allowed yourself to be charmed. Only when you have allowed yourself to really fall in love. Then those questions are forgotten. Remember, those questions can never be answered. Never. What will happen to me? Who will take care of my security? Who will provide for my future? Nobody can answer those questions. Impossible. But yes, you can be mesmerized. You can be in a spell. You can be charmed so deeply that you just forget those questions. And that's what a real life is like, a life of charm, a life of beauty, a life of freedom from normal consciousness. A life of being drunk with love. You are so drunk, you cannot remember petty things. Oh, I'm so drunk. A divine forgetfulness. All the nonsense, even if I try to remember, I can't. I'm so drunk. Something so enticing has captivated me that I am no more in control of myself. And that's surrender. That's another name for the only choice that the ego has. All other choices that you keep making are just
various expressions of the same rottenness, therefore they are not choices at all. You think you are making a choice when you decide whether to buy a black shirt or a white shirt or a crimson one or a violet one. There is no choice there, because irrespective of the color you choose, the desire is to impress someone, or the desire is to get some comfort, or the desire is to somehow extract a discount or something. They are not choices at all. Since they are coming from the same center, therefore it would be a mistake to call them choices. Choices exists only when the options are different from each other. If all options are nothing but echoes of each other, copies of each other, then we are wrongly using the word choice. Real choice is only one. I will not be. I decide to proceed without myself. I can be joyful without myself. That's the only choice. Altering action, starting a new kind of action, stopping action, these are not choices, because the actor is sitting pretty at his old comfortable position. Sitting at his position, he is sometimes exhibiting himself towards the left, sometimes towards the right. There is no fundamental distinction between these various choices that he is making. People often ask, what to do? My answer is not to do. You're not asking who is the doer. You're asking what to do. You're saying the doer will not even be brought to scrutiny. Sir, you just advise us about the deed, not the doer. We are not including the doer in the purview of the question. So they'll come and say, what to do? Kya kare? What should I do in this situation? This is my situation. Very smartly, people hide the doer. What to do is a very unnecessary, very superfluous question. You have to retreat. The right thing will happen. And when the right thing is happening, don't block it. The power to block is a very, very unfortunate power that is always available to the ego. Don't exercise that power. The ego cannot do anything great, but it has the unfortunate authority to stop greatness from happening. It does not have any creative or constructive value, but it has a lot of nuisance value. I cannot do anything wonderful, but I can always throw a spanner in the wheels. I can stop the machine from running. I cannot make the machine run, but I can stop it from running. Which machine are we talking? The machine of innocent Prakriti within yourself. The ego can either stop it or make it run in a suboptimal way towards a regrettable direction, that's karta bhav, doership. It's a bit of a task and it feels quite heavy to let things happen. Yes, your job is to understand yourself. That's your only job. That's the only authority, only choice you have. And as a result of that understanding, you find yourself thinning out. You find yourself dissolving, vaporizing, whichever way you want to put it. The more you look at yourself, the more you understand yourself, the more you find yourself gone. That's your only job. And the more you disappear, the more beautifully the stream of spontaneous action flows. The ego is the block. Otherwise, the stream knows its way. The ego is not needed to make the flow happen. The ego is not needed to assist the flow. The ego is just needed to get out of the way of the flow. Therefore, I advise you, get out of your own way. You are wonderful. You are great. But you are your own blockage. You are beautiful, but you are determined to live and act ugly. Ugly? Am I not beautiful? You just said, yes, you are beautiful. In spite of yourself, you are beautiful. Let the beauty radiate itself. Inwardly, yes, all of us are magnificent. But what's the point in letting that magnificence remain just a potentiality? Let that magnificence become your life breath, not just a latent sleeping thing in your heart. And no, you don't have to feed your greatness. No, you don't have to nurture it. The greatness knows its way just as the stream knows its way. You don't have to do anything positive or constructive. Rather, you have to do something negative and destructive. You have to remove yourself. That's the reason Vedanta talks the language of removal, of rejection, of negation, neti neti. No, don't be there. Get out. Leave it. Drop it. Have faith. What is right will happen. Just that it may not happen as per your plans. It may not happen as per your desires. But your plans and your desires are no good for you anyway. Let the smooth flow of life take over. Getting it? Action can at best be some kind of faint and partially reliable indicator of inner change. That's all. But because it is action that is outwards, manifested, visible, therefore we
forget about inner change and focus on changing the action. I've started doing this, I've stopped doing that. So action has changed. And therefore you see progress is happening. No, there is no guarantee that just because your deeds have changed, so the doer has changed. No. In fact, even when you change your deeds, you change them in very prescripted ways. You very well know what it means to commit a bad deed. You also know what is a good deed like. So from bad deed, you switch to good deed. It's all fake. Change of action. I was doing this. I'm not doing this anymore. Now I am feeding dogs. Now I have stopped drinking milk. No guarantee that it is coming from any inner place. Self-knowledge, wisdom, spirituality is not about changing your actions. It is about looking at yourself honestly, ruthlessly, and that's all. The entire field of spirituality is just one honest glance. Can I look at myself honestly? That's the sum total of the entire spiritual process. Look at yourself honestly. And if you are looking at yourself honestly, that sets the ball rolling. That starts a chain reaction. You look at yourself and that which you are looking at dissolves just by the virtue of being seen. I can see I am afraid. I can see I am avaricious. That which is seen for what it is starts losing its validity. Because it has been exposed, it has been seen. Now it cannot pretend to be virtuous. It has been seen. It loses its validity, its sanctity, its very reason to exist, and it starts dissolving. Now the process, you see, is in motion. You look at something, that which you look at starts falling. That's the power of your glance. You look at something, it starts falling. It starts falling, then that which it was obstructing starts flowing. A thick wall was obstructing the flow of the water. The wall starts falling, the water starts flowing. That water is your nature, that flow is your nature. Please flow, please allow yourself to flow. Don't worry what the flow is about. Don't worry where the flow will take you. You anyway do not exist downstream. You exist right now. What will happen in the future? The future one will take care of that. You exist only for this moment. In this moment, beauty lies in letting the flow happen, in going with the flow. We are not talking of emotional and hormonal flows here. We are talking of something far more sublime and sacred. A flow that comes only by virtue of understanding. Emotional and hormonal flows do not require any understanding at all. Even if you are perfectly mad, you will still have hormonal flows. We are talking of the flow that is possible only when the ego looks at itself in understanding. It is a flow catalyzed by understanding. It is a flow that cannot happen in absence of understanding. What is to be understood? Not the truth. It is sufficient for the ego to understand itself. So, karmanyeva adhikaraste. You have choice, power, authority only over your actions. That does not mean that you are the master of your actions and you can act any way you like. That means your only authority lies in letting the real action happen. It happens. It is not done. You look at the passivity here. This is not something that you actively can do. This happens when you lie passive. Real action in that way is passive action. You stand by the side and let it flow. So your contribution is there, but yours is a passive contribution. You're not causing the flow, you're just allowing the flow. What's the relationship with the action? I'm not the causing entity. Yet I had the unfortunate authority to stop the flow. My contribution here is that I didn't stop the flow. That's my passive contribution. My contribution does not lie in doing something. My contribution here lies in not doing something that I could have potentially done. What could I have done? I could have blocked. I didn't block. That's my contribution. So my contribution is passive, not active. If I am not active, who is? You don't have to worry. The entire universe is active. The entire universe is active. You don't need to shoulder the burden of activity. Activity will happen. You just limit yourself to understanding what is it that blocks action, which is self-knowledge. You just have to limit yourself to knowing yourself. That suffices. Be a good spectator. Stand beyond the ropes. Watch, cheer, applaud, but don't try to intrude into the arena. The arena belongs to the player. You are best being a spectator. Let the play happen. Have you seen in tennis, in cricket, in football also? Sometimes spectators, streakers and all, they intrude. What happens when they intrude into the field? The play stops. That's the ego. The play can happen beautifully only when the ego remains at the margins. Just a spectator ego, a watching ego, a witnessing ego, not a playing ego. The moment the ego enters the playground, the play stops. The play has been defiled, corrupted. Seen how ugly it looks? 2 or 3 of them have entered the playground and now they are being chased away by the police. That's the ego. It enters places where it should not be. It assumes responsibilities that it should not. It assumes its own existence. That's the ego. What to do? Disappear, go away, retreat. But you cannot just retreat like that. To retreat, you'll have to know yourself. Knowing is retreating. Knowing is dissolving. Knowing, therefore, is purification. Are you sure the right action will happen in my absence? I just have to be a passive observer and the right thing will happen? So you need to ask why there is need for such an assurance. Once you understand who is the one seeking assurance on this count, the question will drop.
Sir, you said your only job is to understand yourself, but I always feel like doing something, planning or thinking. So it becomes difficult for me to stop doing and then give myself time to understand myself. So, how do I move from this state to understanding myself? That is my fundamental question.
You see, you don't have to forcibly stop your actions to understand yourself. If you stop everything, it will in fact become more difficult to see where your actions are coming from. This thief is so well groomed and masked that he can be caught only red-handed. So you have to be in the middle of action, whatever it is, planning, thinking, doing, speaking, and then see in the moment, in the middle of the action, parallel to the action, what you are doing. And it is possible to be the actor and also find yourself the witness of the action. It is possible for these two to happen simultaneously. You're haggling with the vendor, negotiating for some petty amount. And then that's the action that is there. It is possible to be witnessing this action even as it is happening in real time. It is possible. It is happening, and right as it is happening, in the moment itself, I am able to watch it. I'm not watching some memory of it. I'm not recalling or recollecting it. Even as it is happening, I can see it happening. Here, right now. So, watching is not about sitting still in some corner, doing nothing and trying to watch. What will you watch? Watching will become difficult, because if you are not outwardly doing anything, if your limbs are not in motion, then all that remains to be watched is thoughts. And thoughts are subtle. Watching this external, outward, sensual motion is relatively easier. You are hitting someone. You can see you are hitting someone, and that can be. Or you are abusing someone, or whatever, you are expressing love to someone. That can be experienced with the senses. So that's easier to watch. Okay, I just said this to that person, such and such words. I can see where all this is coming from. I can see the reality of these things. Whereas if you sit still and say, this is my time to witness myself, then all that you will have at most is some thoughts, some feelings. They too can be watched, but it's relatively difficult. So develop this practice of watching yourself in the normal run of daily events. I'm doing and I'm watching. I'm doing and I'm watching. Just as we said, it is unfortunate that the ego has the capacity to block the real flow. Fortunately for ego, it has the capacity to observe itself in motion. So the ego can do these two things potentially at once, together, concurrently. It can act and it can also be the watcher of the action. So practice doing these two things simultaneously. Like one of those performers who juggle two balls. Doing this and doing this. And doing both of them concurrently.
Namaste, Acharya Ji. My name is Nidhi Pandey, and I'm a housewife. Presently, I'm living in UAE. My question is about emotional vulnerability and our problem-oriented approach. Recently, on community, someone posted about India's very bad position in World's Happiness Index, and there's so much posts on social media regarding people hyping their very small problems. While I've seen my mother doing household chores, even in very bad health, without any stress, while in today's youth, we focus more on problems and play victimization card rather than finding solution. Is there something youth is missing out and learn from our older generation?
You're asking about why people are seemingly more stressed out these days?
Yeah, on very small problems, like even a power cut is a very big problem to them.
See, that comes with the intensity of desire, no? You want something very strongly, in a very expansive way, in a very detailed way. So the number of details runs into hundreds. So now there are 100 ways your desire can be frustrated, because that which you wanted had 100 different kinds of desired details. This should be like this, that 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 should be like this, and only then I can say I have a good life. If any of these things or a few of these things are not the way you desire them, then you feel you have reason to feel disappointed. That is what is happening. The number of objects at our disposal has dramatically increased over the last 100 years or so. In India, over the last 30-40 years. Globally, over the last 100-150 years. And the increase is exponential. If you don't get something in your local store or even the local shopping mall, there is Amazon to order from. Anything is available. Something is not sold in India, you can still order it online. Anything is available. The entire world is available to you. And you feel empowered. You feel you have much more choice today. Right? And when there are so many objects vying for your attention, then your desire also gets attached to so many points. Therefore, you have so many points to be disappointed from. Now you have so many avenues to get a heartbreak from, no? And that's what is happening. See, we are we are restless people, right? And to take care of that restlessness, we have exploited the earth and produced an unimaginable diversity and abundance of goods and services. Because we want to feel good about ourselves. We think if we have that, if we can have more of this, even more of that, then we'll feel nicer. And producing even more, consuming even more, asking for even more diversity and details will continue to remain an imperative as long as you are unfulfilled. You have thousands of objects today and they don't fulfill you. So tomorrow you will ask for millions of objects. And you will feel that since you do not have a few out of those million, that is the reason why you are frustrated. So you'll say, fine, I'll increase the number at my disposal to 1 billion. But it's never going to suffice. It's not that we are disappointed over petty things, over minor issues. It's not about that. Even if there are no petty things, even if there are no minor issues, we will still be disappointed. It's not that the man wanted 100 things and he got only 90, that's why he's disappointed. Your question is, why are people today so disappointed on losing just 10% of what they want, like uninterrupted power supply? And my grandparents, they didn't have much of what we have today, and yet I found them relatively satisfied with themselves. That's how you are putting your question. The question is slightly misplaced. Even if you give a person all that he desires, all the thousands and millions of things that he can enlist, you will find he is still frustrated. Some pretext will emerge. Some reason will come from somewhere and he'll still not be okay. Because it's not about getting the best quality of electricity supply uninterrupted and such thing. It's not about having this, having that, having relationships, having money, having furniture, having cars, having houses, enjoying foreign travel, having the best holidays. We're not condemning them. We're just saying that's not the real deal. We're saying if you are internally aflame, ablaze, burning, it will not help you to go to Maldives and drench yourself in the sea and be carried away by the waves. That's not going to help you. The fire is within. No amount of water on the outside is going to provide any relief. Self-knowledge, spirituality, wisdom, that's what is missing. And that's what is the only solution. Without that, any kind of material growth will only deepen your frustration and only strengthen your resolve to destroy the planet and destroy your fellow human beings and destroy all the species so that you can somehow get some kind of peace. But the peace would still remain fleeting.
Thank you, Acharya.
Yes.